Jay Massey is a full-time real estate investor. He's an entrepreneur.
He also teaches people how to find deals, raise capital for real estate investments.
Meeting Jay Massey in person, you'd think he's just a regular guy. He's got jeans and a t-shirt on and a pair of sneakers. But he's built up a multi-million-dollar empire.
I hope you do have an empty notebook because it's going home filled.
Jay gives back so much value that I've never seen.
Now, at this moment, when I'm looking at the kitchen, things are going through my head.
You want to be friends with him, and he treats you like you're the only person in the room, even though it's for the benefit of everybody.
This is how, when you ask yourself, how does Jay do it? This is how.
He tells people that they have to take action, and they have to take action now. I took the action, and the results have paid off.
What happens when the marketplace understands who we are and how we go out there?
Is that it? There it goes. There we go. Awesome. How are you guys doing? Hopefully things are going well. And for those of you who I'm meeting for the first time, welcome. My name is Jay, CEO of CashFlowDiary. What we do is, well, it's rather simple and straightforward. We help you become a bigger, better, badder entrepreneur by sharing how you turn assets into cash flow. And you're like, well, dude, I don't have any assets. Great, because we teach you how to build, buy, own, control, maintain, and grow assets over time. So what it ultimately comes down to is if you're looking to increase your financial IQ and make sure that you have the capacity to be able to do more, be more, and well, in a lot of cases, help more people, then you're in the right place. The goal today is to answer questions. For those of you who are here live in the chat, feel free to start typing. And for those of you who are here for the first time, let's go ahead and type the word new, N-E-W, in the chat, because I would love to welcome you. Definitely would love to know where you're from. We've had a number of individuals in the in Norway, as well as UAE, Australia, and various different places across the globe, and would love to say hi if possible. Now, we are at a very interesting time of the month. For those of you who keep track of these things, we have today the opportunity to go through the travel tracker for October. Is that right? Yes, it is the travel tracker for October, because we do the short-term rental. That's like literally what we think about, is building cash flow in real estate, but leveraging the strategy known as short-term rentals. What it comes down to is that we will talk about the things that are happening in the short-term rental industry a lot. So for example, let me show you here. There we go. Whoops, wrong window. There it is. So occasionally we will use research reports. In this case, it's produced by a very reputable company known as Skift, S-K-I-F-T. They have a complimentary, AKA free podcast that you can listen to, Skift Daily. So make sure you download that, because again, staying on top of what is happening in the industry that you care about can definitely reveal opportunities for you and for me. Now, in this particular case, part of what we're doing today is we're talking about the opportunities that the reports that they produce, again, in this case, the October version, reveal as it relates to maybe where on earth on the planet can I or should I be looking to build my next short-term rental, Or does it make sense right now? Or is there new technology? We're going to look at that. Now, just so that you guys know, I do my best to try to look at it real time with you. So we'll be able to kind of react and go through and see what it is that we can find that could teach us, show us how to get through the dip process. And again, that's data to information to interpretation process. Now, before we do that, though, we want to look at the recovery index. The recovery index, as again, continually tells us it kind of, hey, what's going on? Are things getting better as it relates to the hospitality industry? And if so, in what ways and or where? Now, this right here is the unfiltered version with no filter for the United States. So now I'm filtering for just the United States to hopefully make all of those lines a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, you see the index number of 43. For those of you who haven't seen this before, what it simply means is that compared to this same time last year, we are, for all intents and purposes, 43% of where we were, if that makes sense. So yes, you may be experiencing record revenue right now, depending on certain niche that you might be in. And we're going to talk a little bit about that for sure. Because for those who are in a high volume, a high volume or high density business, you're probably experiencing a little bit more challenges. But I'm going to explain to you, as one of many things that we talk about, why short-term rentals still make sense right now. Now, with that, with the index already being covered, what I want to do is that I will constantly, so as I'm going through the travel tracker, for those of you who are watching live, feel free to go ahead and start, like I said, put your questions in the chat, because otherwise I may not see them. And I want to make sure that we do get them answered, if that makes sense, because I don't want to leave, no question left behind, I guess is the best way of saying that. So I don't want to leave your questions as a mystery, because it doesn't benefit the world or anyone for you to sit there stuck. Okay. That doesn't help anybody. And if we can help you, then we will. But you need to answer the question, if that makes sense. So we'll do our best in the time that we have today and get through this. So let me see what we got. Casey, what does it say? It says, I've got COVID-19, so I thought I'd learn a little. Okay, no problem, Casey. Well, we'll do our best to help with, obviously I can't help you with COVID, but I can help you learn something. And sorry, man, hopefully you'll get better soon at the end of the day. So what is this? Thanks, Barry. You're awesome. Dang, that sucks, bro. I'll call you after this. Yes, Dante, where have you been? Yes, I'm calling you out right now. Where you been? Like, what's going on? Help me out. And apparently John noticed too. So there it is. Okay, now let's see. Yes, build, buy, own, control, maintain assets over time. Stress on the over time part, because oftentimes we can think it's an instant thing, or we want an instant thing, or possibly instant result. And that's just not how it goes. You like this one? Yes, I'm kind of happy about this one too. I've got a couple of new ones that fire me up a little bit. Plus, I wanted to try a completely different color for me, this whole yellow thing. Either way it goes. Yes, and Mary, no question left behind. That's how we do it, because we want to make sure that everybody can come along. I mean, it doesn't benefit you if we just know all the stuff and you're like, ooh. It only benefits you when you can take what it is that we're saying and use it. So that should be your goal, to walk away from the short time that we have together today with one idea, one idea that you can use. All right. So what we're going to do, like we often do, is we are going to go through the tracker for October, which is likely going to point to ideas, opportunities, and things that you and I can use and leverage inside our short-term rental business to be able to come bigger, better, and better. All right. So let's look at what we've got here. So it says in October, 37.8% of Americans traveled. Interesting. Marking the, smallest monthly increase. Yeah, not surprising. Okay. So basically in short, there are times during the year, and especially in this last year, where we've not had a lot of people traveling, but we still have some. All right. And in this case, 37.8, which month over month, what they're saying is that it's still an increase, but not by much. which I guess is good, but also strange, can also explain some of the travel patterns, pricing patterns, and why some of you, when you're looking right now, because right now, if you are looking to travel, you're like, where's the discounts at? Well, this is part of the reason why is because there's actually an increase in the number of people not relative to normal, but relative to last month, which shows up for us as the operator as, okay, I clearly don't need to lower my prices in order to get full, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of that that's going to likely continue to be reported for quite some time. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to do my best to, and if you want to get, well, actually this report is not, they have free information. This is not one of them. So we're just going to blaze through this as best we possibly can. And yes, okay, so they're restating what was the differences. So in this particular case here, when we look at, there we go, 1, 2, whoops, made that a little too big. Yeah, when we're looking at the percentage of individuals traveling, this is what we're talking about. Now, I am not naive enough to know that some of you've probably been considering the short-term rental thing and you're like, ooh, don't know if this is the right time. Let me give you some perspective, I hope, as best I can, to understand what's been going on, especially for those of you who are here pre-COVID and those of you post. Congrats, good decision, and you'll see why here shortly. One of the things to understand is that right here, back in the January, so at the beginning of the year, of a year, in a normal year, I don't know if that's not the right word, but in a typical year, what's experienced, what happens here, you see this 45 down to 40, right about here becomes an inflection point, right? That tends to start going the other direction, technically, often in the middle of February. So 45, so January to February can be almost a straight line. And then you tend to see the exact opposite of that circle, if that makes sense. You tend to see the exact opposite. Like if you flipped it on its head, that's typically how this would go. But you don't see that this year because we all know what happened right in here, right? Right in here was the travel, the ban, the shutdown, the blah, 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 all that stuff. And yes, every person in the hospitality industry is still trying to forget about February, March, and definitely April, because yes, it was a shock to the system. Now, here's my point. For those of you who were in the business before, you were just exiting low season for most of you. And then we did this, which felt like another low season. And we are coming up into low season. So you've suffered through 3 consecutive low seasons. And for those of you who have been following, especially back in March and April, when we were talking about how to pivot and giving you the document and the resources to do so, you were able to figure out how, even though this was happening, how to make a steady, it was a decline, but begin how to level that off. And then in many of your cases, you've been able to actually now exceed your 2019 revenue. And that's exciting to me. And I hope it's exciting to you as well, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand that when it comes down to this whole process, it's not that COVID has been without effect, but it doesn't mean you had to go out of business. Now, let me tell you who did go out of business. The individuals who went out of business, quote unquote, were the ones who had an Airbnb business. They did not have a short-term rental business, meaning they did not provide temporary housing. So they had one source of their customer, this being usually Airbnb, and that's the problem. And right in here, if that was you, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but that's also what creates the stronger opportunity and why some of you have already eclipsed 2019 revenue is because what happened is a supply went away and consumer preference switched. And I think we'll see that because they've been tracking that for a while where I'm talking about consumer preference. So I should be able to show a graph on that here in just a moment. So let's keep going though, because I don't want this. No one wants this to take forever. Very few. I get excited about charts and not everybody does. So let me go back. There we go. All right. So that's the population who traveled. Yep. Again, why were people traveling? Again, in this case, it was, hey, I want to go see, in this case, relatives, because that's really what it comes down to. I want to make sure that I see the people that I absolutely care about. That doesn't surprise. Okay. Now, this is part of the challenge right here. Obviously, air travel still down. And the part that's really, really challenging is this one right here. It's the business travel part that is absolutely in trauma still. So it's kind of like on triage, especially for this time of year, because this is typically when, especially in your major metropolitan areas, you would be experiencing or have a significant number of business travel. These are all your events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as you can see, was this United Airlines Q3 passenger revenue is down 84% year over year. This is a challenge, to say the least. Now, it's not insurmountable as hinted at, because like I said, depending on where, if you learned to get and acquire customers differently, you learned that the business traveler was not where your money was going to come from. Yay. And you found another way to do it. And this is one way of doing it. So this actually became a benefit. Okay. Our being in a small countryside actually became the benefit, and it became the benefit because the consumer preference was to be away from people. So for those of you who think I'm not in LA, I'm not near a beach, I'm in the middle of nowhere, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to provide temporary housing, right? Now, to be clear, even in a pre-COVID situation, it's still good. It's just that even now you actually have a revenue opportunity if you are in your, what they're calling small town / countryside, if that makes sense. All right. And then let me scroll down a little bit more. Okay, interesting. All right, so this is interesting and I like it and it's good. So this is the first time, again, as you see this year, where they're beginning to experience an increase in hotel stays. I'm assuming that then that's not unexpected, simply because as a hotel begins to change their policies, procedures, how to open, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And when we're looking at what they call in this report a vacation rental, what you will notice is a preference change by the customer towards staying there. Now, while yes, there's a drop, I think that's month over month right there, that I'm totally fine with that, because those numbers are still triple what they normally are. So it's like, okay, this is the biggest piece that most people are still missing at right now, is they don't realize or haven't yet come to understand that as the consumer preference changes, that's what decides, that's what determines our ability to service a customer or have a customer or be profitable, because customers don't want to, if they're going to travel, they would want to have, and here's the phrase, they want to have control over the environment. If I can have more control over the environment and go somewhere, then okay, I'm potentially willing to go, especially if it's within driving distance, then they do so. And that is what these charts have begun to reflect and continue to reflect, and why many of us are still excited, trying to find more locations, all these things, because the idea of touching an elevator button or sitting in a crowded hotel lobby isn't exactly appealing right now at any price. And that's the thing. And again, whether you are on the side of, yeah, COVID's a thing, or you know what, COVID's totally fake news, straight doesn't matter, because your customer is what counts here. So what you think, in this case, it just doesn't matter, because your customer is the one that's got to be willing, and that's who you're serving. In this particular case, really what I'm saying is, even a small drop in percentages of individuals who are traveling from a hotel or what looks like a relatively small number at 9% in terms of those staying at what they're calling a vacation rental, it's still a significant number of people. So significant, in fact, that that number would likely be higher if there was supply. That is literally what I'm saying. That number would likely be higher if there was supply. And yes, for those of you who are in the business, and I know you know this, we are still dealing with cancellations. We are still dealing with postponements and rearrangements, and still figuring those things out. This is, again, significantly higher than normal, but hey, it's right now. That's definitely something your processes have been working around and you've gotten better at dealing with and doing because you've had no choice. For those of you who were not around March, April, our cancellation rates were in the high 90s of percentile. It was scary, to say the least. All right, well, let me see. What was this one? Got it. So we are back to the economic condition, which is one of the things that determines whether or not someone is willing to travel. Do I think that I am going to be doing better? The economy is going to be doing better in the future? And if so, then maybe I'm willing to spend money on something like going somewhere. And what you can see is that while, yes, I would say, at the beginning, there was a lot of, I'll call it optimism, right? That you can see a trend towards, well, maybe not so much, right? And then again, this is ending, this is July through, this is, the economic against for the next 12 months. So this is going ahead, looking forward. Now, when it comes to your personal forward looking, like, am I going to be personally doing better? Again, we have very similar, no change, not really sure. There's this uncertainty, by the way, is why, maybe GDP or spending, et cetera, is down. Because no one, I don't want to take, I'm just going to leave the money in the bank because I might need it for something and I don't know. This is the thing that if you when you hear the Fed and when you hear the talking heads on TV, this is what they're talking about. This is what they're trying to improve, because we don't get consumer confidence. Nobody's going nowhere, and they're just not gonna, right? Now, interestingly, then they didn't break this down specifically as it relates to travel. Are you expecting to spend money on travel? And the answer is not really, but it's more than last month, but not by much at the end of the day, which again, makes sense. Most of the people are just going to, quote unquote, stay put for now. However, and let me see, they may do this later. If not, the other thing to keep in mind is that because of the quantity of individuals, especially this deep into 2020, that have postponed, rescheduled, et cetera, some form of travel, in the same way that it's kind of like that rubber band, if you will, where you stretch it, pull it, boom, it snaps back. That whole thing is there. There is a significant amount of pent-up demand. Let me translate that for you. I said earlier that when COVID hit, supply went down, hotels closed. Students, especially students at school, were stranded. They're now having trouble reopening with fits and spurts and starts and all this stuff, right? That's not going anywhere for a while. Like it, lump it, whatever. And if you are a provider of temporary housing, it means you have a wide customer base to choose from and to cater to and specialize in. It means you can fill up entire apartment buildings, 10, 20, 40, 60 unit buildings, et cetera, because there's just that much lack of supply and more demand. More importantly, what I'm also saying is, as things return to the state, to a state in which people are more calm and willing to travel, it will overcorrect for a short period of time, at which what is already not enough supply becomes really, 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 really not enough supply. This is AKA go get more units. So if you have none, get one, then get another and another. And if you have 10, go get more, because this particular trend and change in consumer behavior is kind of here to stay. It's kind of like when, just think about how many more Zooms have you been on? Like how many of you didn't even know what Zoom was in January? And now it's something you do every day, right? Think about how many children have now used Zoom, elementary age, for example. And these habits that we have developed during this time, they will continue going forward. This, in this case, the preference of having control over your environment inside of a short-term rental is something that will influence travel decisions in the future. And here's the best part. For those of you who are operating properly, you will positively influence the customer so much so they will never choose to travel any other way when it comes to their accommodation. So that's the opportunity that's in front of those of us who are there. And okay, cool. So they're also reporting that the concerns about COVID-19 did go down, but not by much. Yay. I suspect next month's travel tracker will have the exact inverse of that number. And then, got it. So it's, you know, when it comes to how are we doing, are we containing it? Are we making some progress in working with it? Yeah, the answer is not really. And more importantly, I want you to pay attention to what they've got here in the later column. As you can see that later column is starting to increase even more as the months have progressed. At the beginning, as I said, the thought was, it'll be over quick. It's no big deal. And as time has gone on, I call it getting accommodated, getting used to understanding exponential math, because it's exponential math that makes it very understandable. So, which is why you can squarely put me in the 2022 or later column. But I was there back in March and April. I didn't want to be, but that's where it was. And I'm like, I don't like this because, again, when you studied, like, just go study the 1918, how things went then, and you'll see a lot of similarities. All right. And again, oh, wow. Wow. I was not expecting that. I really wasn't expecting that at all in terms of the amount of time I just wasn't expecting. I just wasn't expecting the time when personal life be back to normal to not only still be so high, but also increasing. Yes, small percentages. And as you can see that many individuals, there's an increase in immediately, but a strong decrease in 1 to 3 months, which I do find also interesting, and increases almost everywhere else, which can be a challenge. But at the same time, I think this is a part of understanding exponential math that's coming to the table, which is helping individuals to understand that what I considered normal is no longer here. And okay, got it. So people do still expect to travel. This is back to what I was saying regarding the pent-up demand situation. There's a lot of it. That's really, when you look at this is like, whoo, because understand, as people go travel, it's not like if they will travel. The only real question is, will they be staying with you? Right? And there's a lot of them from a percentage standpoint. And that's like, wow, think about that. So 4 to 6 months from now, not now, for 4 to 6 months after travel restrictions are lifted, which is interesting to think about. So just because travel restrictions are lifted, even though that may sound like a starting gun, you still got a little bit of time. So put yourself in position now. That's literally what you're doing, is to put yourself in position to win. And now this part of the chart is not surprising and still very, very true, meaning your locations, those of you who have parking at your locations, you should be experiencing a strong advantage right now, because most people are driving still. If they're going to travel, they're going to travel by driving, period. That's basically what this is saying. And by driving specifically within 100 miles of whatever the thing is. So for those of you who are near a national park or some sort of monument, then you've got a lots of good shots coming your way simply because that's what's happening. I called it the Rediscover America tour is basically what the customers have been doing. And okay, yeah, see, now this is back to the travel preferences, as I was mentioning earlier, in terms of where they're going to stay and how do they expect this to affect, this being COVID, to affect this experience, to affect their long-term their long-term travel choices. For example, you can see accommodation, a third ish, okay, of travelers are this is affecting my preference of where to stay. That's a significant number. How people travel, okay, so again, cars, and then destination, where they're going. Many locations, especially in your Georgias and Mississippis and the Northeast and Pacific Northwest, have experienced a completely different, almost transformational revenue cycle because people, as I just keep calling it the Rediscover America tour. That is basically what's happening and continues to happen and likely will continue to happen for quite some time. Right. And this is the chart that I try to keep calm about. OK, because this is the one that I keep bringing up and I keep saying, get more units. And the only thing that we consistently keep seeing is I would rather have control over my environment. That's what this means. I don't want to stay at a hotel. I'd rather stay at a short-term rental, period. And the number just keeps getting bigger and supply isn't there. I am telling you directly, get in. This is why. Okay. You got a lot to learn and now it's the time to get started. And again, transportation preference, clearly car, nobody's going on a cruise. They're like, nah, not yet. I'm not the one. Totally understood. And again, the destination types, this is still surprising to me that beaches have remained so high, simply because, but also I do find it interesting that we're such a stickler. We humans, Americans, we want a deal. So we're willing to go to the theme park because, hey, they got a discount on that ticket. Mickey is on sale. So I'll go do that all day long, which I do find interesting, if nothing else. So anyway, the rest of this is 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, got it. So I think they're going to the charts now. Yeah, got it. So again, you can break this information down, figuring out who's traveling, age groups, how many trips, all this type of stuff. My point is taking data, turning it into information that you can use and then take action on is what makes the difference. Just reading a newspaper and headlines does not tell you what to do. Plus, a newspaper headline isn't designed to help you recognize opportunity. It is my hope, sincerely, that through this process, something that occurred for you is that you saw an opportunity. Like you're like, hey, I wasn't thinking of it that way. And I saw that chart and I'm like, does that mean? And hopefully those types of thoughts, or you and a friend, because typically us entrepreneurial types have at least one, like, yeah, and then we could do, and then we can, we got our circle and you got these ideas that are flowing. My hope is we were able to shine a light, even a tiny one, on something like that so that you could put yourself in a position to benefit from what can be a very chaotic time. Now, with that being said, one of my favorite phrases is very simply, where there's chaos, there's cash flow. And yes, is it the easiest time to do any of the stuff that I'm talking about? Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. It is not. And yet it is still go time, because there's a lot of people who are looking for a temporary place to stay so that you have a shot. And because of that, you have a shot to be able to, start a business, make sure that you put in and begin to build your legacy, building assets, like I said, buy, own, control, and be able to maintain these assets so that over time, as you continue to build and build and build, you can see progress, right? Can you imagine having a meeting with your financial advisor or accountant and like enjoying it? That would be great, right? That would be great. That's what I hope begins to happen for, well, everybody, because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that you and I, we do not out earn our personal growth. And most importantly, it is understanding that when you take responsibility for someone else's problem that they're experiencing and you solve it, that is the genesis of your business. And that's one of the best things that we get to do and how we get to serve right now. And we get to all do it together. And it's, to us, exciting. So with that being said, sometimes people have questions like, hey, how on earth can I possibly begin to learn this business? Well, that's one of the things that we like to do. But before we like to talk to you, we like to ask you a couple of questions. So if you are that person or thinking of that person, or you know someone who might be that person, you've ever considered getting involved in real estate investing, your one thing you need to do right now is go to cashflowdiary.com/application. Once you get there, answer all the questions as if your business depended on it. Because once we go through your application and look at it, then we will get on the phone with you and go from there. I'm hoping that, like I said, this has been helpful to you in some way, shape, or form. And I'm hoping that as we have continued our time together, that you continually learn something. I believe, was it David? No, not David. Casey, hoping you were able to learn that one thing you were looking for today. If nothing else, even if only now you know where a reliable place to go get some information. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for taking the time to hang out with us and to listen and to learn. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.
Yeah.